I must say hello to everyone. Today, I have a subject. Hamas said that they will teach Israel a lesson. Israel must never forget the atrocities, massacre, and murders that Hamas and its militants committed on Israeli soil on October 7, 2023, and must never ever have a repeat of it again. Now, the land of Israel, the Holy Land, belongs only to the children of Israel, which are known as the Jews. Hamas have one aim, and that is to annihilate the state of Israel, to erase Israel off the map. That is to eradicate or to wipe the Jewish people out of Israel. Hamas are not interested in two-state solution. They want all of Israel. What they mean by occupation is not just Gaza and the West Bank. They mean all of Israel also. But who has the legal rights of the Holy Land of Israel? Who is qualified to go against God's word? That's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Jacob, who has given the Holy Land to Israel. Now, Hamas want all of Israel, Gaza, and also the West Bank that do not belong to them. Now, Hamas said in this video they will fight and continue fighting until all the Jewish people get out from Israel. Hamas said it is their land. So now, why is the world wasting their time for a two-state solution? Hamas literally can't come to peace with Israel because of their charter. They are calling for the elimination of the state of Israel. So how can Israel bargain with them? From the Hamas standpoint, how can you ever enter into a peace deal or peace agreement with your enemy? Just think of it. Hamas have said in this video that they will repeat October 7 again and again and again and again until Israel doesn't exist any longer. So Israel has the right and must continue the war in Gaza until victory is accomplished. Now, you can listen to what the Hamas leaders have said and the threats they have made to the state of Israel.
Israel is a country that has no place on our land. We must remove that country because it constitutes a security, military, and political catastrophe to the Arab and Islamic nation and must be finished. We are not ashamed to say this with full force. We must teach Israel a lesson, and we will do this again and again. The Alaska flood is just the first time, and there will be a second, a third, a fourth, because we have the determination, the resolve, and the capabilities to fight. The occupation must come to an end.
Occupation where? In the Gaza Strip?
No, I am talking about all the Palestinian lands.
Does that mean the annihilation of Israel?
Yes, of course. The existence of Israel is what causes all that pain, blood, and tears. It is Israel, not us. We are the victims of the occupation, period. Therefore, nobody should blame us for the things we do. On October 7th, October 10th, October 1 million, everything we do is justified.
Video that really took everybody here by surprise. Hamas officials going on television vowing to strike Israel again and again with the end goal of wiping Israel off the map. This video shows a Hamas official being interviewed on Lebanese television. He claims everything Hamas has done is justified. This version with subtitles is being widely shared this afternoon online.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها، لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية، يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك احنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوه. مصر لازم نأدبها، وحنأدبها مره ثانيه وثالثه، ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الاقصى اول مره، لا حتكون ثانيه وثالثه ورابعه، لانه احنا لدينا اصرار ولدينا قرار ولدينا امكانيات.
He was going fast, but he said there will be this was not just the first attack, there will be a second attack, a third attack, and a fourth attack.
In Beirut, Lebanon, we sat down face to face with senior Hamas official Ghazi Hamid. Lebanon, we sat down face-to-face with senior Hamas official Ghazi Hamid, pressing him on the more than 200 hostages his organization is holding in Gaza tonight.
Will you release all of the hostages for a complete ceasefire?
Look, I think we are a human being. We want these people to go home. We want them. And also, we want our prisoner now to go home. So I think we are ready now to have complete compromise, complete deal in order to release all the hostages, either military or civilians, and they release all the prisoners from the Israeli detention centers.
The calls for compromise a far cry from this warning that sent shockwaves around the world. Hamad saying the Hamas terror attack on October 7th was just the first, and that there will be a second, third, and fourth attack on Israel.
But how can you ask for a ceasefire? How can you ask for Israel to stop their aggression when you go on television in Lebanon here last week and say that you will continue your aggression? You will continue to launch on October 7th. Again and again and
what
again.
do you want us to do? To stop?
If you're asking for a ceasefire, it has to be two ways.
No, I am talking that we want to continue against occupation. This is our national, our legal right to fight against occupation. It is according to international law, according to all the regulation in the world. It is in Europe you fight against the Nazis.
But then what happened on October 7th when there were clearly civilians who were killed? How would that make you a good partner to a peace negotiation with Israel?
I don't have any details about this.
But the details of the shocking and horrific attack carried out by what the IDF said were thousands of Hamas terrorists are painfully clear. 1,400 people killed, including at least 260 people attending a music festival. We pressed Hamad about the devastating civilian toll.
But did Hamas kill civilians on October 7th?
Look, we never had intention or decision. It's something is prohibited in our religion, in Islam. It is prohibited to harm or to kill any civilians. But what happened maybe in the first day that when people went inside and there is a wide area, there's people, there's some complication there, we are against killing or hurting the civilians.
And yet the world saw plain as day.
This is 10,000 who were killed in Gaza. 99.9% are civilians.
You want to talk about the civilians in the Gaza Strip, and I'm happy to talk about the civilians in the Gaza Strip. What about them? Did they ask for this? They knew that they would be punished by the actions of Hamas. They have no political alternative to Hamas. They do not vote for another organization.
You forget that about 2 million people since 17 years living under the sanctions and blockade and embargo and collective punishment. You forget that?
I have not forgotten. I've been to Gaza
17 years living in very miserable situation, and no one take care about them. And this is soldiers and military sites around Gaza impose the closures on Gaza.
It's hard to see how Hamas's October 7th operation advanced any cause, least of all that of the Palestinians. But Hamad said the main benefit was that the Palestinian cause is now front and center on the global stage and has inspired protests around the world, including in the West.
So you got people in the streets, in capitals throughout the world, protesting in favor of the Palestinians. It cost you the lives of thousands of people, innocent people.
Yes.
Will you do it again? You've said you will. To advance that cause again.
Look, the question.
Will you kill more civilians to get more protesters in the streets of Washington and London?
We are still fighting. You want us to stop? If we stop now,
you're asking for a ceasefire.
If we stop now, we will go back to the miserable situation, to humiliation, to be under the occupation.
Matt Bradley joins us tonight from Beirut. Matt, having sat down with Ghazi Hamad, did you get a sense that there was any softening about what he said about the October 7th terror attacks, what he said in Arabic, essentially that they would do this again? And is that still the mindset he has and Hamas has?
Well, no, I didn't really get that sense because, it was only a week ago that he made those comments to Lebanese TV here in Beirut where he said that he would launch those attacks or Hamas would do that again and again and again. What I did get the sense of is that he's very willing to say something completely different to an Arabic-speaking Middle Eastern audience than he is in English to a Western or an American audience. That stands to reason. Of course, he's going to be saying different things to different audiences, but it just goes to show the disparity in the understanding of between these two cultures and how he can say something like that and how he would be celebrated for saying something like that he would continue these attacks, and how if he were to say that to a Western audience in English, he would be very harshly criticized. This is a man who was a spokesperson. He speaks fluent English. You can see that. He understands how to speak to different audiences. It's unclear whether he thought that what he said on Lebanese television was going to be something that the rest of the world would hear and that other people might call him out on that. We even heard today from the White House commenting on his comments, him specifically. So, he probably didn't expect that those things he said on Lebanese television were going to make the kind of waves that they did.
You can't be a settler if there's been a connection to the land for 3,000 years. The story of the modern state of Israel is perhaps the best story of liberation of a people in its land, having existed there through all of the different ruling parties who have been there all the way through the Ottoman Turks and then the British until the creation of Israel, the modern state of Israel. I think it's important to remember that. I think it's important just in terms of genocide. Like I talked about that before. It's really pernicious to suggest that the actions taken by Israel in self-defense in response to this truly genocidal organization don't take it from me, as Mosab points out, that the Hamas charter itself calls for the destruction of Israel and massacre of Jews. It's a genocidal organization that Israel is defending itself against. That's a really important fact. And Israel as an apartheid state has been thrown around for a long time. It completely ignores the fact that the state of Israel is majority minority. It's not a white colonialist state. It's a state that is majority people of color. Those are just important facts that can't be ignored, and it's why I think this is so important. While I'm at it, if I could just quickly touch on some of the others that I know happened here on campus. When you're chanting Intifada, Intifada, and you're doing it at any time, but especially after what happened on October 7th, and you're out there chanting something that for so many of us immediately triggers the second Intifada when 1,000 Israeli civilians were killed by suicide bombers in cafes and on buses and at Passover Seders and at hotels all around Israel. That kind of language isn't political speech. And when people talk about March chanting from the river to the sea, again, I'll turn it over to you. From the river to the sea, what does that mean? Well, it means from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Free of what? Free of Jews. That's what that means. It envisions a land free of Jews in which the Jews are pushed into the sea, quite literally. Totally consistent with Hamas's aims, as Mosab.
We met Abu Abid, a Hamas recruiter, at an undisclosed location in the West Bank.
I give the fighters guidance. When Israeli forces enter, I tell them what to do and how to open fire.
And while the world recoiled in horror at the savagery of the October 7 massacre, chillingly, he sees it as an act of resistance. So, on October the 7th, women and children were murdered.
We see death every single day. Israel lost what? 1,000 or 2,000 people killed. That's nothing.
But it doesn't make it right to kill women and children.
This is my land. My land. So it's only normal that we take it back by force.
nor is there remorse for the more than 28,000 Palestinians killed in Israel's bombardment of Gaza.
You had to have known that that would have been Israel's response, that Palestinians would suffer as a result.
We are not pleased with that, but this is the path of the armed struggle.
This all end, all this killing, all this suffering.
The killing and the suffering ends when the Israelis walk out of our land. But if they decide to stay, we shall continue to fight. And if I die, somebody else will take my place.
Asked the same question, how it all ends, Baskin said, when young Palestinians no longer believe their only option is to die for Palestine.
While support for Hamas in the West Bank has gone up, in Gaza, it has not risen significantly. In fact, we've been hearing Gazans criticize Hamas, something they would not have dared to do under their rule before October 7th. Tony?
Yeah, Hamas has a history of torturing, even killing political dissidents, any of its political rivals. Deborah Patter for us in Israel. Deborah, thank you very much. You know, Gershon Baskin is absolutely correct that a two-state solution is the only path to peace. Everyone knows that. It's patently obvious. But what's notable is you hear that commander from Hamas talk about my land, and there will not be peace until Israel leaves my land. He's not talking about two states.
Right.
He's talking about all of Israel. That's what the hard right in Israel hears when they say a two-state solution is impossible, because look what we're dealing with.
Exactly.
And you don't hear civilians talk in Gaza about getting rid of Hamas much on camera, because Hamas has a long documented history of severe torture and violence against all of their political enemies. In fact, they threw other Palestinians out in 2007 when they took power. So there are so many innocent people there, and they are at the hands not only of an Israeli military that's encroaching, but at the hands of Hamas that is fighting from within their midst.
Now, the world has heard and seen that it's not occupation of Palestinians' land. Hamas want all of Israel. And that's the aim of the Arab nations that surround Israel also. The 1948 to 1949 war began when Israel declared itself an independent state following the United Nations partition of Palestine and 5 Arab countries: Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. They all attacked Israel, and Israel was victorious. Since that time, the Arab nations don't want Israel around. They all want to get rid of Israel. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Algeria, and others are all contributors in troops and arms to the Arab forces. Should Israel ever trust these Arab nations again? Why should Israel trust these Arab nations? Since the return and settlement of the Jewish people, they established a democratic state and became a democratic nation in 1948. Ever since then, they are being attacked by their Arab neighbors. Look at Lebanon, for example, at this present moment. But I don't want to get into Lebanon now. But Israel is still fighting for survival. So to stop these continuous attacks, Israel has to go after Hamas and its militants until Hamas release the rest of all the hostages, put their weapons down, and to surrender. Israel has to put a stop and an end to all threats and wars that they have been facing since 1948 in their own homeland. And no country should ever blame them in doing so. Now, I would like the world to listen to the former Vice President of the United States of America, Mike Pence, and also the son of one of the founder of Hamas leaders, Mosab Hassan Yousef. At the end of this video, if you do appreciate my channel, then please press the subscribe button. Thank you. So now, listen to Mike Pence and Mosab Hassan Yousef.
Israel has no choice but to invade Rafah and hunt down and destroy Hamas once and for all.
Rather than criticize Israel, Pence said Americans should fully support its war efforts against enemies sworn to wipe it off the map.
If the Palestinians laid down their weapons right now and released all hostages, we'd have peace. But if Israelis laid down their weapons, we'd have no Israel.
War is the only way to move toward peace between the Israeli government and the Palestinian people. And so to that end, how do we, as Americans or as supporters of Israel, advocate for war, knowing that that might and will likely only bring more loss?
Many people are mistaken if they think you can achieve peace all the time through dialogue. When dialogue, negotiations, reason, rationality come to a dead end, then there is nothing left but the use of force. For 17 years, Israel extended its hand to Hamas. The international community, especially the United States, encouraging Hamas to drop their idea of annihilating the state of Israel. It was the condition that you cannot be part of the peace process without dropping your idea to annihilate a race. And Hamas could not do that, to accept Israel's right to exist. Without going back through the history of Hamas and how many crimes they have committed since their existence, 35 years in the making, building momentum. And on October 7th, they committed a genocide. This is a very important thing to understand. First of all, that Hamas nature is not a national organization. It's only using a national cause called the Palestinian cause, and a very broad term. Keep that in mind. Second, they commit a genocide, not a terrorist attack. Don't be mistaken. Define a genocide. Look into the Hamas own media documenting their attacks and see what they did to humanity. The darkness, the embodiment of evil. Then it did not stop there. They escaped after their crime, and they took an entire society, the Gazan people, as human shields. So Hamas' first crime was committing a genocide against the race. Then they took human shields. Children, women, building bunkers, tunnels under hospitals, schools, using schools, mosques as missile launching pads. This is their second crime. The third crime against humanity. They kidnapped infants, children, women, elders, took them hostages with a demand to release mass murderers. You saw the infants, you saw the children. How can anyone with consciousness still believe that this is a political issue? Anyone who sees things for what they are, he say or she say no to this. You are swapping or exchanging infants, babies, with monsters who have blood on their hand, spending 100 years supposed to be in prison. They want these terrorists, those savages, back on the street. This is why Hamas took hundreds of hostages. This is their third crime. Multiple crimes against humanity done simultaneously by the same savage group, and we still debating whether they are okay or not okay. So Israel was left with no other choice but to use force. And force is the last resort. Philosophers in the East and in the West, enlightened avatars, validated the use of force when all other means fall. And in this case, in Hamas case, there was no way around it but to use the force. There are civilian casualties, but their blood is on the hands of Hamas and on the hands of Hamas alone. Because Israel warned the civilians of Gaza to evacuate. It gave them 21 days to escape, but they still insist on staying to give Hamas cover. You know why? Because unfortunately, many Gazans support Hamas and many Gazans voted for Hamas. And the majority of Gazans hated Israel. And many choose to be silent. And a majority of the Arab world, not only the Gazans, failed to condemn Hamas and say this does not represent the Arab people. They failed to condemn Hamas. This is their biggest mistake. And when such a society fail their moral responsibility, at least, I don't want to say to eradicate Hamas, but at least morally, to take a moral responsibility and say, we are different. This does not represent our religion, our culture. But instead, they gave Hamas cover and they failed to condemn Hamas. This is their problem. So Israel is left with no other choice but to defend itself. And all the victims of Gaza that you see, remember my words, they are war victims. Very different type of victims than October 7 victims. October 7 victims, they were victims of a genocide. This is the highest crime can be committed, a genocide, where you systematically kill people, move from door to door, annihilating everything in your way. This is what Hamas did, indiscriminately. What's happening in Gaza, Israel called the people, say evacuate this building because we have a tunnel under. Then Hamas go with their propaganda using pictures and videos from Syria to say, look what Israel is doing to us, while they are the ones hijacking an entire society using Palestinians as human shields. This is the devil in action. So, of course, there is no other way but the use of force. And with this, I conclude. The United States of America, after the savage attack against Pearl Harbor, where 400 Japanese suicide airplanes hit the harbor, the United States immediately developed the dirty bomb, and they wiped out Hiroshima and Nagasaki 4 years exactly after this attack. When they did that, the war ended. It was the end of World War II. So sometimes, some of us, could be one of us, would have to take the responsibility to drop a dirty bomb somewhere in order to stop the war from spreading. Because when a majority of people agree on violence, validate violence, justify genocide, and think it's a point of view to become a Nazi, in this day, it all begins with killing Jews. This is what happened last century. And Nazism, many thought of it as a point of view. And now history is repeating itself. And even in the middle of our institution, Educational institutions, we've been invaded by Hamas ideology, by the name of Palestine and by the name of revolution. Who cares? Anti-Semitism is Nazism, and it's rejected. It should be rejected on this campus, should be rejected everywhere in the United States. The United States should be the last country that allow this type of mentality to express itself, because Nazism is not a point of view. It is not. And we will never validate savages. So basically, Israel had no other choice but to use the force, and war is ugly. In war, people die. This is why Hamas should have not started this war from the beginning. They dragged all of us into this situation. But what I know for sure, that Israel will end this war. Whatever it takes, we have to eradicate them. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please.